What is up, guys? Frosty Aussie 0232 here today for another Frosty Features. In celebration of the character Void Knight, who is a symbiote version of Silver Surfer, we are going to do Frosty Features Silver Surfer. The feature started after the release of Silver Surfer. I actually started playing Marvel Strike Force shortly after the release of Silver Surfer. So this is also sort of a full circle moment for me, and I think it'd just be fun. So for those of you who haven't seen a Frosty feature, what this is a comic book background on the tunes that you use in Marvel Strike Force, and I'm the guy who read the comics for you, right? So let's begin. According to Scopely, so with this, I always try to go back and find the blog posts in which they introduce the characters. Well, back in the day, before they had consistent blog posts, because now you get a blog post every Friday on MarvelStrikeForce.com, they used to kind of send them out sporadically, so they're kind of hard to find. But the biggest intro I could find for Silver Surfer was them legitimately just saying this: wield the power cosmic with Silver Surfer, right? That's as far as I can go. Usually we judge these blog posts, so we'll do that at the end. But in this, it came out in release notes, and all they said was, "Congrats, here's the Silver Surfer." If somebody can find, the one that actually has the description, link it in the comments below. But I couldn't find it. This is the closest one I could find, and it was right when his offer came out on the 14th. So it is what it is. There we go. Let's move on. Moving right along. That's our man of the hours, the Silver Surfer. His name is Norrin Rad. That is his actual main given name. Yep. The first appears Fantastic Four number 48, 1965. Even before the true cosmic age of Marvel starts, we see the 1970s being heavily them exploring the cosmosis, the cosmic realms. We have a Silver Surfer character made with the Marvel method, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby style. Good stuff. Powers and abilities. Okay, so Silver Surfer has pretty much all of the powers and abilities, especially from being from the 60s. He's sort of a character that his powers change due to the plot. So most notably, he's superhuman in every way: super speed, super reflexes, super strength, etc. Strength rivaling that of the Hulk, even surpassing the Hulk, technically. There's no upper limits on his strength. Near invulnerability, he's very hard to pierce and hurt. Interesting little tidbit is he allows himself to get hurt most of the time. It's revealed that he holds back because he's so powerful, and he allows himself to get hurt and even die just to be able to experience these things, because he is also immortal. He has the power Cosmic, which essentially is a way taking cosmic energy and manifesting it into different forms. So you can kind of create a bunch of different powers with that. So very broad, right? And elemental manipulation, different types of radiation, fire, earth, water, air, the four nations, right? So, his powers essentially there's not really a limit to them, and they definitely change depending on what you're looking at, right? Ultimately, he's got a lot. There's no good way to actually put it down, and it is what it is. Aliases. Herald of Galactus is the most famous one besides Silver Surfer, right? Sentinel of the Spaceways is another one you see in a lot of comic books, and many, many others. He is brought up in many fashions, forms. He shows up at a lot of different planets, a lot of different timelines. He travels back and forth through time, so not just space, but time. So he has an awful lot of different aliases, and they kind of show up all over the place. So it's not pretty hard to tack him down, but as long as you got Silver Surfer and Herald of Galactus down, you're pretty much covered. Affiliations. This is a character that's been around for a long time, so he's got quite a few affiliations, but most notably, I wanted to point out Secret Defenders, a relevant team in Marvel Strike Force at the recording date of that. God Squad, we've talked about in a few Frosty features. He is not a god, but he is that powerful that he's put in with that group of people. the Annihilators being probably the strongest team in Marvel existence. Silver Surfer is a part of them. In fact, they're so strong. I talked about it in one of the past Frosty features. I think it was Beta Ray Bill. And their biggest weakness is that they're so strong they can't fight in confined areas, right? Because they'll just destroy a planet, destroy a spaceship or whatever. So they had to bring on a Black Widow type so that they could actually have some sort of defense in these like small areas so they don't just kill everybody. And the Defenders, for some reason, I always found that odd. The Defenders, the Defenders feel like a very city level team, but then randomly they'll have somebody like Silver Surfer on their team, which I always thought that was just pretty crazy in and of itself. But often you see him alone, so that's important to note. Background: so he is Zen Lavian. So he is from a planet called Zen La, and he is kind of picked up by Galactus, more or less. So Galactus being the devourer of planets, he's going through looking for snacks, whatever. Zen La is a utopia. It is a place that the technology and people have gotten to a point where they want for nothing. Everybody's happy. There's no conflict, no problems, whatever. But then you find out that people, when you have everything you want, you don't necessarily have what you want, right? So who died? You can't be a superhero, supervillain without somebody dying, and in Silver Surfer's case, it was his parents. First, his mother, commits suicide. So his mother commits suicide because of essentially the lack of variety. She doesn't like. She's bored, and she wants something beyond this. And then his father is accused of stealing intellectual property at a point and meets the same fate. Silver Surfer is itching for adventure. He's itching for something else, but he is still kind of holding on in there. And then, lo and behold, the arrival of Galactus coming to destroy Zen La, and in exchange to be his herald, showing off his courageousness and such, Galactus senses something special in him, and accepts him as his herald, and he becomes the Silver Surfer in exchange for Zen La being being left alone for a while being the key part of the phrase there. What if he didn't have powers? I wanted to bring this up because I feel like a lot of people see Silver Surfer and they stop at the cosmic being. So before, as he was Norrin Rad, with not being the Herald of Galactus, he would not be defenseless. He is an okay martial artist. He is, you may see him in, Planet Hulk, where he's fighting on Sakaar. He's very savage as a fighter, but he's not Shang-Chi. He's not trained in the martial arts. He never really has to use those things, but he's sort of just a brawler who can fight. But also he is trained in the art of hypnosis. So a lot of the time when you see him fighting without powers and things like that, he can put people to sleep or something like that. So he is not defenseless or useless without his powers, right? But given the power cosmic, he becomes way more of a threat. The second Herald of Many. He is not the first Herald of Galactus. The first Herald of Galactus is assumed to be the fallen one. Galactus's past is a little wish-washy and kind of all over the place, but so Silver Surfer is assumed, in all of the best research I could do, assumed to be the second Herald. There are quite a few Heralds, and they kind of change on the different timelines. Typically on here, we stick to the 616 timeline, so on that, from what we understand, he is the second Herald of Galactus. Out of all of the Heralds of Galactus that come up, however, he is considered the most powerful. So that's important to note because a lot of people become the Herald of Galactus at some points, right? But even to this day, Norrin Rad is considered the most powerful of that group. So, just a cool little thing. Moving on. Relationships. Jartran and Elmar Rad are his parents. Fenen Rad is his half-brother, before his dad's untimely demise. He has, because his mother's gone, he moves on, gets married, has a kid, half-brother. But, Norin is unaware that he has this half-brother, and then he has a lover in Zinla called Shalabal, who they part ways because Shala starts getting into it with Fenin because Fenin's around more because Norin becomes Silver Surfer and takes off, right? So that's how he finds out he has a half-brother, by his half-brother having relations with his girlfriend. But even though that sucks, he ends up getting married to a Dawn Greenwood, and we will talk about her next. Notable events! Silver Surfer's Dawn. See what I did there? See what I did there? Let's talk about her. So, Silver Surfer, acting as the Herald of Galactus. I feel like a lot of people know about the kind of how the Galactus Heralds work. That's just sort of what most people know about Silver Surfer. The Heralds go forth and find planets that have acceptable energy to be devoured by Galactus. Silver Surfer would look for uninhabited planets for a long time, but got to a point where he couldn't find any more uninhabited planets with the proper energy needed by Galactus. So he has to start looking for inhabited planets, etc., etc. He starts having a lot of grief for what he's doing, and he parts ways with Galactus. Boomskis. Then he runs into this guy named Incredulous Zed, who is like, yo, there's this really bad queen, and she's trying to kill my planet. See, look at this beautiful planet I have that is Empiricon. So, Silver Surfer agrees, and he goes to find this Queen of the Never. What this Queen of the Never is she is the lover of Eternity. Eternity is the embodiment of the multiverse itself. We've seen Eternity in the MCU. So she is the lover of Eternity. The Queen of Never essentially is the embodiment of all possibilities. So all possibilities that could happen within the multiverse. She is a very high-level cosmic being. So Silver Surfer approaches her, and he sees all these, I'm going to call them Zed drones. And he sees all these Zed drones, and he's like, yeah, I want to talk to you, and we're going to figure this out. And he destroys all the Zed drones, and he's like, yo, I was sent to kill you. And the Queen of the Never was like, that's a funny thought, isn't it? And so she more or less starts ripping him apart atom by atom. And in the meantime, so he originally agreed to do this from Zed because Zed uses this sort of precog ability, and he captures this lady named Dawn Greenwood. And this is supposed to be just in the universe, like him knowing, you know, he has been to the Queen of the Never. He's seen Eternity. He knows that the most important person in the Silver Surfer's life ever, that he ever will, essentially his soulmate, is this Dawn Greenwood. Even though the Silver Surfer doesn't know that himself, Zed tells this to Silver Surfer, and because Dawn is innocent, he's like, well, I don't know who that is, but I will help you anyway. So that's why Silver Surfer's in this situation to begin with. And he goes and essentially gets his butt kicked by the Queen of the Nevers, and at the same time, Dawn is on Empiricon, and she finds that Empiricon is built around the Heart of Never, which is the Queen of Never's heart. And she, in finding the heart, she gets a wish, and she wishes to help Norin, and she helps the Silver Surfer, and he essentially gets to a point where him and the Queen have a conversation, and it turns out that Zed went to a plane outside of existence and found a legendary sword called the Edge of Reality, and he brought it to the Queen and carved out her heart and used the heart to make essentially what amounts to a tourist trap planet that is centered around this one single being. And after having this conversation, the Queen of Nevers points out to Silver Surfer, because my heart is gone, endless amounts of universes are being destroyed. The possibility's not there. These universes are being destroyed because I don't have my heart. I need it back. And so Silver Surfer's like, yeah, we're going to flip that coin real quick. And because Dawn had found the heart, Silver Surfer essentially dives in, gets the heart, brings it back to the Queen, and then fights Zed. And with that, Silver Surfer, gets the Edge of Reality blade that was used to carve out the heart and stabs Zed and defeats him. When we're fighting at this high of a level, all of these characters, nobody really dies this high up on the scales, right? So, in being stabbed, he is merely defeated, but not dead, and Eternity looks at him and is like, yo, bro, I'm not a fan of how you treated my woman, yo, so you're going to be banished to the place that shouldn't be and couldn't be, which is the place where he got Edge of Reality. So he got banished outside of the universe, outside of the multiverse timeline himself, to this other plane of existence. And then Dawn is then freed from the servitude. Empiricon is destroyed, but Silver Surfer uses his cosmic powers, that, once again, plot device stuff. He's like, I'm going to hold this planet together till all the occupants get off so I can save everybody. So everybody gets off, then he lets the planet explode, and then him and Dawn explore the spaceways for essentially eternities, whatever. But Dawn is a regular human being, so there's a lot of adventures that Silver Surfer has with Dawn, but there is a situation, this is super cool, super sweet, and it's really cool how it kind of plays out, but she essentially gets word that her dad is dying, and he dies, and so they end up on this planet called Euphoria, which essentially puts people in a state of euphoria, so they're always happy no matter what, and so people leave, whatever, they left at a point, but anyway, she wants to go back to be able to grieve the loss of her father, which is understandable. She's there for a little while, and then she asks Silver Surfer, she's like, hey, I need to have one last word with my dad. Can we go back in time and talk to him one last time? It'll help me finish with the grieving process. Silver Surfer's like, yeah, sure. And he grabs her, and then they go back in time, but they overshoot and essentially go to the beginning of time, more or less, essentially to when Galactus was born, whatever. And they get stuck there. He can't travel time anymore for some reason. He's not sure why. And so they kind of explore the cosmos at this time period for a while, and then Dawn starts to age, so they end up retiring onto a planet similar to Earth, and they live out Dawn's life, and Norrin takes on the form of a human, and he ages with her, and they go through this whole thing, and there's a point where she stops being able to travel, so they stop exploring, and she can't move, and she's kind of on her deathbed. He's now telling her all these past stories of these adventures that he would have, that he went through this whole thing. And then when she dies, he grieves for a while, and then he comes back to the Silver Surfer and moves on. And because he's immortal, he's able to, live long enough to get through all this stuff, whatever. So it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing. In the chat, somebody said Galactus was born. Yes, and that's actually the thing we're going to talk about right now. Null and the Void Knight. So I gotta talk about the Void Knight because this Silver Surfer feature is for the release of Void Knight. Super important. So Void Knight is a symbiote version of Silver Surfer. So following one of the deaths of Thanos, a bunch of cosmic beings are pulled into, they're summoned to witness like this event, and essentially the Black Order creates a black hole and starts to suck everybody in, and the Silver Surfer gets sucked in the black hole and once again goes back in time, right? So in going back in time, he's flying through the spaceways, kind of checking things out, and he senses an extremely dark presence whose aim is to destroy all of the universe as it's known, and that dark effer is Null. So he ends up on Clintar, and 3 goddesses that are infected with symbiotes approach him, and he destroys them all, being the BA that Silver Surfer is. But then a door appears, and he is pulled through the door, and he is face to face with Null himself. And so Null, being the god of symbiotes, somebody who everybody talks about all the time in Marvel Strike Force, everybody wants to see him, etc. Silver Surfer, face to face, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna fight you, Null. And Null's like, that's a really funny thought that you thought you could fight me. And he essentially easily dispatches with Silver Surfer and then converts him to a symbiote. Because Silver Surfer in some ways kind of impressed Null with his display of power, and in infusing him with a symbiote, Null is assuming he's more powerful, so all of a sudden the Void Knight is this very prized possession of Null. But all we know is that he's become a symbiote at this point, right? The Void Knight has one appearance ever in comics, right? It's really funny that he's a character in Marvel Strike Force now because he's only in this one story, right? So eventually Ego the Living Planet shows up because he's not a fan of what Null is doing. And Null's like, look how powerful I can be. Check this out. Void Knight. And the Void Knight shows up and he's like, Void Knight, kill him. And Ego's like, nah, bro. So remember, Ego is a Celestial, right? So about as strong as you get. Very, like a Galactus level threat, if there is one, right? Maybe a half step down from Galactus. So he's like, Void Knight, get him. And Ego's like, not a thing. And he just essentially poofs the Void Knight out of existence. There's not even a fight. He very much like off the shoulder, like, psh, you're not a thing. which allows the Silver Surfer to reform and be just the Silver Surfer. That's all the Void Knight is in comics. Done. Story over, right? But he looked cool, so now he's one of our characters in MSF. But he should be a pretty strong Silver Surfer. The goddesses, I do want to throw out, there's a little bit of evidence that when things that strong get a symbiote, they might be weaker. So there is a chance Void Knight could theoretically be weaker than Silver Surfer in canon. There's no evidence of that, but Void Knight in the game, as of this recording date, seems like big plug and play, pretty strong character, so that's great. Anyway, with that, Silver Surfer is reformed, and Ego is like, yo, we're gonna team up, and we're gonna take out Null. But I'm feeling pretty sick. Can you check me out real quick? Can you go down on my planet? Go down on my planet body and feel around and see what happens. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Surfer's like, yeah, let's do that. And he goes into the enigma, the construct that is Ego. And at the middle of it, what he finds is the Lifebringer 1, which the Lifebringer 1 is a device. It's essentially an incubator for Celestials. So, this one's specifically for Galactus. So the Celestials, as in we saw in Eternals, and anyway, they are birthed out of planets. Ego was implanted with Galactus, and so Surfer finds this, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to kill that because Galactus is gonna be born from Ego." And he goes to destroy the Lifebringer, and Watu the Watcher shows up, and he's like, yo, dude, don't blow that up. You're going to screw up everything. You're not going to be able to avoid him being born. You destroy him here, he's going to do it somewhere else, whatever. And so Silver Surfer grabs the Lifebringer and pulls it out of Ego. Ego's like, thanks. It was eating the cosmic energy from Ego, which is why Ego felt like he was dying, and he throws it, and he sends it to the very first planet that Galactus... Arceopia is the first planet that the Galactus devours, and he throws Lifebringer towards, he sends it on its way to Arceopia so that Galactus more or less hatches, is born, and he devours his first planet, and so Silver Surfer sets Galactus's eternal life in motion here, right? Which is super cool. And then with that, Ego's like, that was awesome. You need to be able to beat Null, so I'm gonna give you the life force energy that I have, like a life seed essentially. And he gives the life power to Silver Surfer. That's actually how he sends the Lifebringer to Arceopia. And so now we have life charged Silver Surfer, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go anime fight Null. This is gonna be great. And so he goes to go fight Null, and Null actually takes him out pretty easily still, but sort of. There's more of a fight. It's a bigger struggle, but Silver Surfer recognizes that he's about to die, and he puts all of his remaining energy into one attack, and as Null is gloating over beating Silver Surfer summons a whole star, a whole gaseous monster star in Null's face, and it hits him so hard that it knocks him across the universe and away from Silver Surfer, effectively letting the Silver Surfer win by TKO, technical knockout, technically win against Null. But since Silver Surfer expended so much power, he dies. Once again, once we get this high, we don't really die. He dies, and his life force energy spreads out through the universe, and he's spreading life to all these planets that Galactus had destroyed for a while, and then after a time, more or less, he collects enough matter where he's able to reform himself back into the Silver Surfer. Shaboom, right? With that, here on Frosty Features, we talk about power level. Marvel Strike Force doesn't care much about power level, but here we do. Now, the way this works, if you are a multiversal threat, you can topple the multiverse as it stands and your universe and every other universe as it is. If you are universal, you may be able to end your universe, head over to the next one, and end that one. Cosmic means you are a threat on a planetary scale, meaning you can take out things like small planets all the way up to a solar system or galaxy with enough effort. Nuclear means you have power equal to that of a nuclear bomb, so being able to level things like small cities all the way up to a small planetary object if given the time. Super Soldier means you are beyond all the levels of a human being, doing things like being able to take out a brick wall, maybe level a city block. at most. Super Soldier, or excuse me, that's the one I just did. City means you are a human trained to the absolute peak level that humans can be. These being our mercenaries, our secret agents, things like that within the Marvel Universe. And then there is Greg. Greg is the undead Asgardian that is spawned by Hela in Marvel's Strike Force, and on his own, he doesn't amount to much. Due to undead Asgardian physiology, and just because I like to say it, in the event that I encountered Greg out of the street, we're both snapping like we're in West Side Story, and I happen to pick up a couple of I can pick up 5 smooth stones off of the road. I theoretically could beat Greg in this fight, right? So, we are equating Greg to that of a regular human level, and in the case of Silver Surfer, it feels like easily he's in Cosmic. Yes, obviously he drags the World Eater around and he destroys worlds. I did just tell a story about how he summons a sun, right? Suns can do some pretty crazy stuff, right? Like take out entire solar systems, or even galaxies, you know, stars. So that easily puts him on upper echelon of Cosmic. But due to his workings and things, his time traveling and dealings with people like Eternity, Null, or Queen of the Never, I equate Silver Surfer to be the bottom level of a universal threat. Silver Surfer is extraordinarily powerful, and everything he does comes out to how he feels like something should play out, including his own death, right? He is extraordinarily powerful, and he can take on the likes of Thanos hand to hand, right? And we all know Thanos is of such a high level, to the point where Thanos fights Galactus, right? So, and Galactus is a pillar of a universe. Without Galactus, the universe more or less doesn't exist, right? There has to be death and life, etc., etc. Read about Galactus. Silver Surfer is at the bottom level of Universal. That's what it is. That's what I think about it. And as far as according to Scopely, I accidentally skipped ahead, but okay. According to Scopely, there's nothing there. I can't really accurately judge it because they didn't have anything there, right? It was before the time of feeling the need to justify these things, before Frosty started calling them out, right? They didn't do that because of me. That's a fun thought, but not a thing. So, that is it. That is Frosty features Silver Surfer. I hope that you all had a good time. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe this on YouTube. It helps a lot. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of clicks. As a reminder, I stream at the link above on Twitch on 8 a.m. Central Standard Time on Sundays, where we do Frosty Features live. Let me know in the comments your favorite Silver Surfer moments, anything I might have got wrong, or anything that anything else that might interest you or me about Silver Surfer. I hope that you all have a fantastic week, and most importantly, stay cool.